What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Rock and Roll True Stories. And with 2022 coming to a close, I wanted to highlight some of my favorite stories that I've done. These aren't necessarily videos that were the most popular of the year, but these are just stories that I found interesting and fascinating, and maybe you guys missed some of them. So I've linked to them down below. Before we get started with this year's videos, I want to let you guys know that you can request stories on our channel. We have a request form down below in the description box. Submit as many requests as you guys like. I go through the request form on a weekly basis, and sometimes when I'm like working on a story, I'll see a really good request from you guys and I'll be like, I'm going to work on that. So these aren't in any particular order, but the first one, and this was I think one of the early videos I put out in 2022, was MTV's Bon Jovi Contest, where they gave away his childhood home. And if you guys have watched a lot of my MTV Contest videos, then you know that generally they don't have happy endings or they have some sort of weird twist that happens, and the Bon Jovi Contest was no different. Number two is when, and this is going to sound a little bit weird coming on a rock channel, but there was a feud that happened between Enrique Iglesias and Howard Stern back in, I think it was 1999 or 2000. Apparently Stern got a tape of Enrique, I think it was a soundboard mix of him like singing, and apparently he sings to a backing track. At least that's what was insinuated. And then Enrique had to come on Howard's show and prove that he could sing, which was just a hilarious time in Howard's show. Probably one of my favorite stories of the year. Number three is when Christian singer Pat Boone went heavy metal and did a covers album of all like hard rock and heavy metal artists back in 1997. And he got a lot of blowback from the Christian community, who had really formed a lot of his fan base, for a good number of years. And then he had to basically speak out against it and defend doing these songs, which really weren't that bad of songs, if you look at the lyrical content and stuff. Number four are two videos, but they're from the same band. One is when Napster sued the Offspring, and then the other one is when the Offspring gave away $1 million to supposedly their biggest fan. It would result in their two fans competing for $1 million on MTV's Total Request Live, and it turned out the fans didn't know anything about the Offspring, and it was truly cringeworthy TV. So I've linked to those videos down below. Number five is when Cannibal Corpse appeared in the Ace Ventura movie. Talked about how that whole thing happened, how even years before Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey talked about his love of metal. Number six for me is Garth Brooks' alter ego Chris Gaines that he had in the late 90s, and how Chris Gaines was supposed to have his own movie, and how some country stations didn't want to play the record, and it still sold reasonably well. It's a really fascinating story. Number seven is when Def Leppard angered a city in the States. The group's frontman Joe Elliott made some comments at a show, I think it was in El Paso, and apparently it got the band in a lot of trouble. And it's a story a lot of people haven't heard before. Number eight, and I always love a good feud, is Dave Mustaine's feud, not with another band, but with the clothing store Men's Warehouse. It happened, I think, in the last decade or so, and it resulted in him going on Twitter and bad-mouthing the company and doing it on Facebook as well. I always love these odd kind of feud videos. Number nine for me is Pearl Jam's fight with Ticketmaster. It's one of the longer videos I've done this year, and I know people have seen Ticketmaster being in the news a lot, but it's really cool to go back, 25 years and look at what happened with Pearl Jam and Ticketmaster, and how Pearl Jam was one of the biggest bands in the world, and even with all their clout, they just could not take on Ticketmaster because the company was too big and had too much sway. Number 10 is a video that didn't get a lot of views, but I honestly love the story. It was when Pink Floyd played Venice, Italy, and there was so much concern over the sound levels damaging the existing infrastructure in the city, and the band ended up playing on the water, and the aftermath of the concert was like such a shit show that the actual local politicians were so deeply unpopular with the locals who lived in Venice that they got thrown out of office. It's a pretty cool story, and I think a lot of people haven't heard it. So those are my top 10 stories of the year that I've done. I'd like to hear what some of your guys' favorite stories are. I think we put out somewhere around probably 200 to 300 videos this year. We're going to have a ton of content coming in 2023. We're going to be shooting the videos a little bit differently as we get longer into the year. And you can probably, if you guys follow me on TikTok, you can expect more shorts this year too. Some stories just aren't well suited doing like a long format, or there just isn't enough content there for like a long video. So shorts are like a really great format for telling some of those shorter stories. So I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I want to thank you guys for all the support. It's been kind of a topsy-turvy year for me, just going back to work and trying to manage everything. But I really want to thank you guys for your continued support, and it's been so much fun doing YouTube for the last couple of years. So take care, and I hope you guys have great holidays.